Welcome back to another episode of Inside Multifamily Access Control, brought to you by Salto. As always, Colin's with me. Colin, how you doing?
Doing well. Hello.
Very good. March Madness is upon us. Everyone's having a good time there. I'm not.
Yeah, great time. Let's just
Yeah,
move on right there. Big
yeah,
Big
yeah.
Ten country. We're
Yeah, that's
good. We're good.
that's a good. Pac-12 not looking so bad. Not looking so bad. Too bad they're all like 11 and 15 seeds, but they're not looking so bad. So very excited today. We're going to have a topic that is ever more important to our industry, and what Colin and I have been talking about. We believe is going to be sort of pivotal, if you would. There's a new utility, if you would, in like with electricity and water, and it's around the connectivity and the ability for things to connect. And today we're going to have Bryan Lonergan join us from Blue Rim, a company you may or may not be familiar with, but after this, I have a real good idea that you will be. But Bryan, thank you very much for taking the time to join us and introduce yourself and the company. I think it'll be a great conversation. So thank you.
Good morning, guys. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. The company is Blue Rim Networks, and what we provide is high performance, secure, managed internet and Wi-Fi for the multifamily industry, predominantly apartment communities, student housing, senior living facilities. We've been around since about 2007. We're headquartered in Logan, Utah, and have customer base across the 48 contiguous states, if you will.
Very nice. And most of your customers are those developer owners, or who do you typically work with?
Very much so, yes. I mean, we do a lot of retrofit work in the ownership space, the property management field, if you will. Then, of course, developers more and more are embracing their own network infrastructure. So we do an awful lot with both new builds as well.
Okay. And then, well, a typical customer would come to you looking for what? Like, so I'll put it this way. I know connectivity, like, all right, Comcast or Verizon, they come, they connect the internet. I don't know, right? And then but like, what aspect in the connectivity world do you deliver? And like, why, if I was a developer, would I come and look for Blue Rim?
The interesting thing that happened in content delivery in the last 5 years has been the streaming paradigm. And the streaming paradigm has changed the way that we all consume content, and it rendered the old box-based model somewhat obsolete and changed the way that developers and owners are looking at providing internet to their residents. In the old model, the content was in the box, and so the providers had to provide in-unit content capability. But when content moved to being available across the internet or from the internet directly, it compelled owners and developers to start to look at, well, if I no longer need a box in my apartment, but I need internet for my residents to consume what they want, how do I make that happen for my community? So that paradigm shift to streaming really compelled a new view of what network infrastructure for multifamily looks like going forward.
It's interesting. Yeah, because before it probably was something like, here's the panel where the connections are made and then whatever after that. But now it does it. So the other part of it, so now you talk about the streaming side, how has Internet of Things and connected products also impacted that demand or that need? Is it early, like they haven't figured that out yet? Is it a recognized need that you all are working on now? Like, how does it fit with the streaming?
Well, the synergy really comes from the fact that the legacy carrier models, the box and the apartment model, was very unfriendly to a homogeneous across the community type of a network infrastructure. And so when you went to streaming, it pushed a new paradigm for the way networks were architected for communities, such that we had a single network that IoT devices could be dropped into in a pretty straightforward fashion. So with IoT coming along, the two big drivers in smart features are access control and thermostats, predominantly, energy management. Those two features really drive the operational efficiency that owners and operators are looking for, and are the two features that the residents are really looking for and willing to pay more money for. The network that we provide innately provides an infrastructure or a platform to be able to drop those IoT devices in, not only for today, but for future uses as well as new IoT functionality comes out to the marketplace.
So I mean, I just like some of the terminology that you were just talking about, the community-based paradigm. So talk a little, help me, right, from the security industry side of this, understand a little bit more what that means. For a long time, we were talking about hubs and Wi-Fi portals, and give me a little bit of a breakdown of what that infrastructure looks like in order to deliver that, and how you see the IoT infrastructure and the access control infrastructure working with that infrastructure that you bring into the building.
Yes, very good. Well, in the legacy model, when we had a box in every apartment that controlled access to that small space, and then typically speaking, the owners would put guest access points in common areas, which would provide a single username and log on access for residents and guests and property management staff, if you will. It was not only unfriendly to putting in IoT devices because you had literally hundreds of disparate networks as a part of the community. It also was inherently insecure once you had everybody logging into the same guest access points. You're basically exposing your residents' personal identity information and other information that is a key element of our smart devices anymore. So the new paradigm from the way we overlay the network is that we put access points across the entire community in a single network, so that we divide and provide each resident a segmented VLAN access to be able to get the performance and maintain the security they demand across the community. So once we move into a network-based paradigm, then the overlay of IoT devices becomes a lot more straightforward. We've got a homogeneous network across the community so that the IoT devices, the access control, the doors, thermostats, leak detector devices, other items, if you will, can easily be integrated in a standard platform.
Yeah, it's interesting because it probably historically a lot of the addition of a lot of these things as they got connected, maybe the infrastructure wasn't set up properly initially to support it, and then we wonder why maybe they don't work as good as they should. But it's not because maybe the product's not broken, it's just because the size of the rails wasn't made for the things that are going on to it. Now I look at it sort of like a train analogy, but like the rails are sized properly for you to put whatever type of train you need to put on top of that to work in that regard. Talk to me a little bit about the cybersecurity aspects, if you would, of this. Like what added value, I guess, do you all deliver to that? Because I know from our initial conversation, it seemed to me you were almost treating these multifamily housing units like mini businesses of IT structure, right? Like it was a different way of looking at it. Then again, I just feel like it's looked at as you just bring the thing to the building and you light up and let people get online, but this is very different. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yes, it's an excellent question. And cybersecurity is certainly becoming more and more important for a variety of reasons. I mean, certainly the work from home paradigm is pushing network security out such that organizations, employers are very keen to have their employees operating on networks that they feel are secure, so they can gain access to corporate systems and have VLAN access and do those types of things. The older legacy models were inherently unsecure in that, again, in common areas, we had a single network where everybody logged in so that everybody could see each other. The legacy network model that provided the content delivery had inherent gaps in both performance and security, particularly as you look at a number of guest access points where everybody logged on using the same username and password. There was just an inherent exposure of identity data, personal data that is compromised in that type of a scenario. So what the change to a network-based or a secure network-based approach is that we now provide security down to each resident in a sort of micro-segmented VLAN slice of access that's anywhere across the property and not localized into a box or into a device per se, but it's in a network. And so we do a much better job in the managed network world of protecting personal data. Cybersecurity relative to corporate data and individual resident data is becoming more important as all of us use our smartphones and smart devices with credit card information, bank account information that's readily available if a perpetrator had the capability to hack into the device and steal identities. So it is a challenge. The predominant architecture of most multifamily communities today are still based upon unsecured networks that have, again, guest access that does not protect or do the best job of protecting an individual's personal identity information.
So that all said, break it down to me if you would. When you look at access control, so if we were to take multifamily as the common use case, and you were to look at what you all are doing from the network side of things, and from what you understand from the access control industry, where do you see the sort of 1+1=3 opportunity that by working, let's say a Salto or somebody in our industry working with you in partnership, just and knowing of each other, whatever, like where's the added benefit for the stakeholders, if you would, being, let's take the stakeholder of the property owner, developer, and the other one being the end user, the tenants, the people that live there. So like, what's the benefit, if you would, of that you see by what you bring and then what you know of our industry?
Right. From an access control perspective, the benefit of a managed platform is that we can integrate the access control functionality, the devices themselves, into a single network infrastructure in a managed model. And in the legacy model, legacy carrier model, typically what would happen is you'd have to overlay an additional or separate Z-Wave or other type of a network to be able to integrate easily the access control functionality that's necessary for the property. So we're simplifying the capability of a property to be able to deploy access control functionality, at the same time providing a managed Wi-Fi that has the security and performance for residential use throughout the community. So in a sense, we're streamlining the process and making it easier for the owners and developers and our partners like Salto and others to be able to integrate their feature set as well.
All right, so then this is the essence of the convergence happening that we've been talking about, to where they've been sort of disparate systems that kind of just work together. But now you're actually talking about like as the locks and readers and all of that becomes online, they're nodes on the network in a way. In the same way that you would be managing access to logical systems like getting on the Wi-Fi, or whatnot, you're seeing it as the ability to get into your door. And it's the same identity type, permission models, the need to authenticate, and all the other stuff that goes into it. But by being part of the network, you now get the efficiencies of acting like the network, and layering on top of that then too the management that you historically would have seen within a commercial office, of being able to have awareness and control and visibility and notifications and all that stuff of what's on your network. You now, as an owner operator, have the ability to get that for your physical systems that happen to be riding on the network. Is that fair?
That's exactly correct, Lee. So in essence, as you say, the access control network systems, the energy management systems just become another user on the network, like the residents and property management staff.
All right. And so if you were going to summarize, if you would, if I'm somebody from the access control side of the marketplace and have not necessarily spent a lot of time on this, what do you suggest what's the first thing I should do?
Well, the first thing that we see the new development people being interested is they want to define, what do you want to provide to your residents and to your property management staff in terms of a feature set. You know, what class property is it? What type of access automation do you want to bring to the community? And what product set works well for what your domestic or your target audience is, and kind of do that design work up front. And then once you do that, you know, you can bring that to our team or to, you know, and we bring together Salto and bring the smart feature platforms out there as well. And we have a joint solution or a bundled solution that we can deliver to our customers. And then we help you plug in the appropriate components. I mean, the product sets, the different access control options that are out there to be able to integrate into the property. I mean, you can put in, you know, very cost-effective solutions for the properties that deem it to be, and you can put in, you know, a higher-end solution. So you really want to define what you want to deliver to your residents and your property management staff as feature functions, and then we can help you put together the components to make that solution work for your property.
Awesome. I think for me, this has been, I think a much needed conversation that we probably should have been having sooner. You know, I think I've mentioned before of we've talked to a number of resident experience apps and the growing demand for, you know, mobile-based applications for residents to interact with ownership groups and all of that. But we kind of left this foundation of how that communication takes place. And I think this is a great opportunity for access control, resident experience apps, and connectivity to really start to figure out who works well together. How do you deliver that full solution that the developers and the residents are looking for? So I really appreciate your thoughts on this.
Yeah, Colin, you're right. It's because historically a lot of it's been done sort of like the networking side. So like we work with the network. We don't like meaning that it's already there. It's sort of like that thing's like a black box over in the corner over there, and we're just going to work with it. Now we don't work with it. We use it, if you would. So the ability to have the conversation to design, like as Bryan, you were talking about this idea of collaboratively designing. So it's a key part of it as the same way that we would when we develop an application of, you know, of a building with iOS in mind and Android in mind. You don't do it in a black box and then no, you do it together. And so the system can be delivered.
Well,
so yeah,
I just think from the security industry side, so often we were, you know, the commercial driven piece, right? And then we moved into the multifamily space. And on the commercial side, they've got network administrators, just hook it to your network. They'll take care of it. They know what they're doing. We don't need to pay much attention to it, right? Then you got into the residential space and it was individual internet connections per residential space, as Bryan was talking about in Z-Wave and all of that. But now as that changes, we have to recognize that as well and understand, hey, how do we operate within this new paradigm? How can we deliver an even better experience for the resident in this new application? And I think the changing evolution of connectivity maybe didn't resonate with the kind of impact that can have on that overall experience for the residents.
100% agree. All right. So Bryan, if people want to find out more information, what is really the beginning of probably a longer conversation that's going to be happening. And I have a feeling it'll continue to sort of grow and the speed is going to go. So where's the best place for people to find out more information about Blue Rim and yourself?
Yeah, you could just go to bluerim.net and fill out our ask a question, and we'll be happy to follow up and help answer the questions you have about these new paradigms, what's happening out there, and give you the information to help guide you along the best path for you and your communities.
No, I appreciate it. So thank you very much, Bryan. Appreciate you taking the time and letting us know Blue Rim a little bit more, and then also just, you know, kickstart the sort of conversation that we know is needed to happen. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
No problem.